The three people on the left are actors. They've been briefed to stand or sit when they hear this. Everyone else that's brought in is a genuine shortlisted applicant. They've been given no instructions other than to fill out their forms. My team and I were secretly watching from another room. The more socially compliant a person is, the more they're likely to look to others for signs of how to behave.
This is going to be your spot.
And the more people, the greater the pressure to join in. In this case, whether to stand or sit. Those people that didn't follow the crowd were removed.
I think we have to lose Amy, sadly.
Amy, come with me.
Once we had a full house, we got rid of the actors, leaving us with a room full of compliant people standing up and sitting down, even though nobody told them to do this.
One of the very first social and psychological experiments the Harvard University did was actually a very simple one. They drew 4 strokes on a board, 3 of them with very identical height, and 1 of them looking extremely taller than the remaining 3. So they got 5 people. 4 of them were actually paid actors, or they were part of the session. Okay, then they got 1 random person, making 5. So what they did was that they drew these strokes on board and then asked all 5 people to go and circle the odd one out. The paid actors will all go, they will circle any of them which is not the tallest. So they all go for, let's say, 1, they all go for 1. But because you are not part of the session or you're just a random person, you will go for the odd one. So technically, this is what was just happening, that the people who were part of the session, they were just using the 4th person as a case study. They were just using the 4th person to test their experiment. So they realized that after a while, all these people who were actually choosing the odd one out started to reconsider their truth. You have 4 strokes, with 3 of them being very identical, and 1 of them not being like related to them in any way. And then out of 5 people, you are asked to circle the odd one out, and then you have 4 of them actually choosing one which is not the odd one out. So it became a little dicey for them, but they kept this experiment on for a while with similar kind of people. But eventually they realized that after the 7th time, these people who were really choosing the odd one out started to also choose the one that the others are choosing. So the whole premise of the experiment was just to indicate and show that social construct has a more willpower than unconventional truths and personal truths. You end up seeing from the experiment that people actually want acceptance rather than truth. And this has been actually figured out through a lot of social experiments, not just this one.
We set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? After just 3 beeps, and without knowing why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group. But what happens if we take the group away?
Elaine, please.
Okay, now she's alone. The crowd is gone and nobody is watching her except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do? She's now conforming to the rules of the group without them even being there. Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who doesn't know the rules.
Everybody was doing it, so I thought I was supposed to.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do?
The idea is that humans don't really like the truth, and it is not something we choose. We want to be part of a family, we want to be part of an organization, an identity group, and these identity groups have ideologies that is intended for everyone to a certain standard. Within this group of people or this community, you realize that you all behave in a certain way, in a certain accordance. So if you find out a truth, it is very difficult to want to object it or even communicate it, because you would either be dissociated from the group or you would be misaligned. Let me put it that way.
Those people that didn't follow the crowd were removed.
I think we have to lose Amy, sadly.
Amy, come with me.
So what the social experiment did is that people who eventually had a truth, which is knowing which one was the odd one among the four strokes, began to also choose the one that was not like that for the social acceptance. So you sit among your Muslim colleagues and you communicate and you realize how Christ's death isn't a thing here. And then you sit among your Christian colleagues and then the death of Christ means almost everything to them. And these are two contradictory narratives. These are people who actually believe that it never happened and it was made to appear to them so. And these are also people who actually believe that it happened and their existence or their philosophy of existence depends on that. But since they are two contradictory claims, we would have to find out which one the truth is. But the truth is not what is important here. Association is what people really put their emphasis on. So to many, they don't really reconsider their truth. As far as it is stated, as far as it gives them a sense of belonging, they would do everything to sustain it rather than to have the truth unveiled. If you were born little and you were told that this stroke is the odd one out and it is the tallest, and that is what everyone in that community accepts, and that's what everyone in the community believes, people who actually would go for the true odd one out are actually going to be putting aside by society because they don't fit in the societal matrix.
So, what does the matrix look like? Let me show you. Now, despite what you might be thinking, these two circles are not equal. I repeat, these two circles are not equal. One is in fact larger than the other. What I need you to do is determine which one that is. So, please raise your hand if you believe the blue circle is larger than the red. Alright. Please raise your hand if you believe the red circle is larger than the blue. Alright, very good. Now, before I said anything about these two circles, what was your first instinct? Equal, right? Because they look equal. And the reason why they look equal is because, in fact, they are equal. These two circles are identical. Yet I got just about every one of you to raise your hand and say that they're not. So what did we learn? That you can be manipulated like that to believe in something that goes against your natural instincts. Just imagine as a child you're taught that the blue circle is larger than the red. If you say it enough times, you convince yourself that's the truth. If you're told the lie enough times, it becomes part of your reality. And if enough people are taught that lie, that the blue circle is larger than the red, well, now it becomes part of the culture. And if that culture then passes that misinformation along to the next generation, well, now it becomes tradition.
That is the kind of conventional environment we are in right now. But as of today, we need to begin to raise the facade of our ignorance and try to understand that sometimes truth may not always be what we were told to believe. Today, many kids still believe that the sun is stationary and all other planets are revolving around it. If you have further enlightenment of how the solar system works, you know that the sun itself is not stationary and then it moves around the black hole in the center of the Milky Way galaxy where we belong. So the sun also makes movement. That is a truth that we know right now. Even if that is what you know, when there is a better explanation or there is a further improvement on that information, you just move on to the next one or you move on to the advanced information. But when it comes to places like politics, like culture, like religion, truths cannot be advanced. It is just a matter of if you don't agree, you can leave. If you are attending, let's say, Pentecost, and then you read the Bible and you find out that we are supposed to worship on Saturdays, you're not the one who established Pentecost. So no matter how truthful that is, that community will begin to dissociate you. So it's either you are opting to be part of the community or you are stepping aside. But because of a sense of belonging, being part of the group, being part of this identity, you would want to stay in it than actually sought for truth. So people who question the establishment are most at times seen in a certain way. We are social animals, and then we tend to resonate where we find a sense of belonging. Cases where you have contradictory ideologies between religious groups, within political groups, and within cultural groups or within even little organizations, you realize that people whose truth are being, let's say, shaken by truth begin to become more violent because they want to stand by their truth, which is subjective to them and not the objective truth. If you want to seek objectivity, be ready to be alone. But I'm going to leave you with one quote from one of my most interesting philosophers, Bertrand Russell. And he says that never be afraid to be eccentric in opinion, because opinions now accepted were once considered to be eccentric. Giordano Bruno was murdered because he actually thinks that all these stars had planets revolving them and they may possibly have life on them. And this was considered blasphemous and he was murdered for it. So, yes, we live in a world where we have the ability to question truth, we have the ability to question authority. It is actually very dangerous to be right in matters where established people are wrong. But again, never be afraid to be eccentric in opinion. Sometimes in the room, you'll be the only person who thinks this way. It's either you don't want to communicate it to them or you just want to let the energy of the room flow. But deep down your head, just know that the masses do not hold the truth. And in cases where you realize that you are part of the mass, it is time for you to pause and reflect, as Mark Twain once said. Yes, so this is another episode of Beyond Indoctrination. I hope it was a wonderful one and that you enjoyed it. Please stay unconventional and think for yourself.